Hello. Welcome to Living in the Flow Radio on the Amazing Women of Power Network. I'm Dr. Ruth Cherry. My book is Living in the Flow, Practicing Vibrational Alignment. It's available from Amazon. I'd like to talk about presence today, and specifically about our challenges practicing presence. We each have a human center and we have an eternal center. In our human center, we take care of business. We go about our daily affairs. We keep our appointments. We maintain our cars. We balance our finances. Once in a while, we clean our houses. In our human center, we're concerned with behavior. What am I doing? What needs to be done? What am I going to do next week? What should I have done yesterday? We're thinking about things to do. We're thinking. We're using our intellect. I call this being in our controller. Now, that's not a bad word. It doesn't mean you're a controlling person. It means you're taking care of business. The controller's not interested in vulnerability or feelings or processing. In fact, the controller tells us not to be vulnerable. Don't get into your feelings. Just take care of what has to be done. This is an adequate attitude to go through our days, isn't it? But we also have an eternal center. In our eternal center, we're only concerned with our experience. And we move more deeply into our eternal center by embracing our vulnerability. So in our human center, our controller says, no vulnerability. Don't be vulnerable. Stay in your head. Don't feel your feelings. But the only way we move deeply into our eternal center is by embracing our vulnerability. And what I mean by vulnerability are feelings. Letting ourselves feel our feelings. Knowing what our feelings are. When we do this, we practice alignment in our eternal center. Alignment with that deepest part of who we are. So in our human center, we're not concerned with alignment. In our eternal center, that's all we're concerned with, is vibrational alignment. We are always practicing some vibration. So you can see right now the conflict between our human center, our controller who says not to be vulnerable, our eternal center, the way we know we heal. Our controller is just concerned with talking to other people, thinking about what's outside us, talking about the book we read, talking about the lecture we heard, what we did, what we're going to do. And so often, folks use the controller as a way to do spirituality. I call it doing spirituality because we're keeping our experience at arm's length. We listen to someone talk about something spiritual. We talk about it too, but as long as we're talking about it, we're in our controller. We're not experiencing. We're not practicing alignment at any depth. So when our controller wants to be involved in the spiritual process, the controller talks about some guru, talks about something she's read, talks about a lecture she's been to. And that's really all a controller can do when we enter the area of spirituality. The controller is concerned with the world around us and with thinking. So when you find yourself thinking, when you find yourself talking about something outside you, you're in your controller. And notice when you're doing that, especially when we're talking about spiritual kinds of issues. If you're thinking about what a guru said, you're not practicing vibrational alignment with the deepest part of who you are. Now, that may be okay with you, Maybe you just want to talk about what the guru said. Maybe it's an idea you're just rolling around enjoying, but you're not practicing presence. When we practice presence, we look at our controller. Practicing presence is not making your mind blank. Practicing presence is not trying. It's not listening to a guru and trying to replicate what the guru is recommending. Practicing presence is when we move behind the observer window and we look at what is already going on. We don't change what's already going on. We don't criticize our controller. We just don't identify with our controller. In our observer, behind the observer window, we notice whatever is, but we don't judge it, we don't change it. We notice our thoughts, but we don't think our thoughts. We notice our feelings, but we don't identify with our feelings. We notice the dynamics that are already going on inside us, and always there are dynamics going on inside us. Always our inner worlds are teeming with activity. That's fine. When we move into our observer, we notice all the activity. We don't participate in it. We don't resist it. We don't judge it. We notice it. In the observer, we practice detachment. We practice alertness. We notice what's going on, but we are detached. It's like looking through a window. The activity is happening on the other side of the window, not on our side, not on the observer side. So we want to be able to move into our observer at will when we practice presence. We choose to practice presence and to notice what's going on because that allows healing. Some people say to me, well, why should I practice presence and notice what is? Because nothing's going to change if I don't take any action. That's a controller statement, isn't it? It's not an observer statement. That's a controller statement. But we move into our observer, we notice that controller statement, but we are detached. The truth is, if you take action, if you try to change something that is right now, that's resistance. When we practice resistance, nothing changes. So we want to look at what's going on. We don't want to judge it. We don't want to change it or try to change it. We don't want to resist it. We simply notice. Staying behind our observer window, staying in the observer, we practice presence when we do this, simply noticing what is from our detached standpoint. Practicing presence heals. It heals. We allow healing. Now we talked about our human center and our eternal center. Healing happens in our eternal center when we allow. We can't force healing. We can't manufacture healing. We can't do healing. We can only allow healing. And we allow healing when we practice presence. Because when we practice presence, when we stay in our observer, behind the observer window, we're saying to the universe, I am here. I am available. Heal me. The universe always, always, always responds to us immediately. And always when we are present, always when we are available, the universe responds to us and acts in our lives. And what I mean by saying the universe acts in our lives is the universe knows how we need to heal. Our controller doesn't really know how we need to heal. Our controller only takes care of business. The universe knows how we need to heal. It knows the places in us that are still bruised, that are still yearning, longing. It knows the places in us where we're a little distorted, where maybe we've cut off our feelings and decided, I'm not going into that vulnerability again. That was too hard. The universe knows how we've cut ourselves off from our true self, from our authenticity, from our wholeness. And the universe always is pulling us to heal, always is pulling us to heal. But we're not available for healing until we move into our observer, until we practice presence. When we practice presence, we release our resistance. Then the universe can pull us to our healing and to our wholeness in totally, completely personal terms. Regardless of what any guru has written or has said, the universe knows what you need, in specifically, precisely the context of your life. We had said there is so much going on in our inner worlds. We have many, many, many subpersonalities. In the 1970s, the transactional analysis folks introduced us to the parent, the adult, and the child in each of us. The adult is the part of us that doesn't really have an agenda but uses good judgment. The parent's nurturing to ourselves. The child is the part of us that carries our feelings. Happy feelings, sad feelings. We're only talking about our inner world. We're not talking about relationships with other people. We're talking about inner world subpersonalities and subpersonality relationships. Now, we may have 100 subpersonalities. Most of us have a hard worker that we call on when we have a project that needs to be finished by a deadline. Some of us have an artist who has to create in order to feel fulfilled in her life. I use him and her interchangeably now. It doesn't matter. You'll find the right him or her adjective for your subpersonality. You may have a bully. Perhaps your bully doesn't like his or her vulnerability and doesn't like vulnerability when he sees it anyplace else. Maybe you have a victim. Maybe you have a subpersonality who doesn't believe that she's powerful. She can't make happen what she wants. She can't have what she wants. She feels sorry for herself. She's resentful. Probably a little bit angry too. And we mentioned the caring parent. Now, our subpersonalities inside ourselves have relationships among each other. Hopefully, when the child part of us has been hurt, has been damaged, maybe feels an old injury come up again, hopefully our caring parent is there saying to the child, honey, I'm with you. Come sit on my lap. Tell me what's going on inside you. And the caring parent holds the child and listens, because the caring parent knows the best for the child. The caring parent knows she can protect the child and use her good judgment. The caring parent is only concerned with the child's healing. We never have our child out in the world interacting with other folks. We only have our child interacting with our parent or our adult. All of this relationship activity happens within us. I'm going to say that again. We only have our child, our inner world child, interacting with our caring parent or our adult inside us, not with anyone in the world. Now, the exception to this would be at a football game. If everyone's in their child, everyone's playing football or whatever sport you're engaging in, everyone's in the child, then everyone's playing together. That's okay. But you don't want your child out there in the business world negotiating contracts, making payments, making decisions about, am I going to pay this bill or not? Your adult is a subpersonality who takes care of that part of your life. Now, very often, our subpersonalities are in conflict. The intellectual thinker part of you loves how in control that feels. You feel sort of above it all when you're thinking, when you're talking about what you've read. Again, this is part of your controller. But your controller may hate the vulnerability in your child. So you may find yourself in conflict between your thinking and your feeling. And this is okay. We can assign our thinking to certain parts of our lives and our feeling to certain parts of our lives. But when we hate our feelings so much that we cut off our feelings and we turn our feelings into thoughts such as, I'm not going there. That's just dangerous. I don't deserve that. I don't want to be in that part of me. I hate those feelings. I'd rather think. I'd rather align myself with this body of thought. Now, in Buddhism, they say this, so I'm going to think that way. Well, in Christianity, they say this, so I'm going to think that way. Well, in this book, they say this, so I'm going to think that way. When we think, instead of being present to our feelings, instead of aligning with our experience, instead of staying present to who we are in the second, that's misusing our thinking. There may be a conflict between your thinking and your feeling. What you do when you practice presence is you stay behind the observer window. You notice that conflict. You don't take a side either way. And as you stay behind the observer window, simply noticing, simply practicing presence, you will notice resolution that did not come from your mind. Healing does not come from your intellect. Remember, we allow healing. Healing comes from the deepest part inside us, and we practice vibrational alignment to watch the healing. So we invite the universe to heal us when we practice presence, when we move into our eternal center, when we stay focused in our eternal center, when we show up. At that point, we can't be proprietary about our experience. Whatever happens, happens, and we just watch it. We are behind the observer window. And all we can say, no matter how we feel about what we notice, all we can say is thank you, because we know the universe is working in us, and we are so grateful for that. The universe always knows what's best for us. The universe is always pulling us to our highest and our best. I'd like to suggest this week that you think about moving into your hero. Once a day, maybe more, to move into that part of you that truly is your highest and your best part. The part that says, I want only the best for myself. I'm not going to allow any limitations based on fear. I'm not going to make decisions based on avoiding anything. I want to be the best me I can be. Now, maybe you can stay in your hero for a minute. Maybe you can stay in your hero for a few minutes. But I want you to practice moving from your observer, behind the observer window, into your hero, and back again. Get the feeling of what it's like to change your vibrational practice at will. These are two parts of yourself that you will want to have access to, your observer and your hero. Thank you. Again, this is Dr. Ruth Cherry. This is Living in the Flow Radio. My website is Meditation Intro. please visit the website. Please write me a message through the website if you'd like. And I will be here with you next week. Have a good week, living in the flow.